Hello, everybody. My name is Ty. I'm one of the instructors at Mesh Masters Academy. We are a Discord based school and we teach another number of programs, including Substance Painter and Blender and others, that will allow you to create 3D assets for games and other applications. Most of our classes are free and open to all. And there will be a link in the description where you can find our Discord server. So, a few days ago, my colleague Shango made a video about how to initially set up a project in Substance Painter. And today I'm going to show you how to export textures from Substance Painter for use in a variety of different scenarios, including applying them to your models in places like Second Life. We're going to use this little guy as our model. He's fairly straightforward. He has two materials, a beard material and then everything else. Uh, let's go ahead and just jump into it. And we're going to just open the export window. And that is found under File. You just go down to Export Textures. Fairly intuitive, simple. Okay, so when you do that, you get this window popping up. And you notice that this window has three tabs: Settings, Output Templates, and List of Exports. Let's just start with the Settings tabs. It's divided into two main areas, this area here and this area here. This area here just lists the texture sets, in this case is the beard and the gnome, and you can do specific, you can set up them differently by clicking on each one. I rarely do that. Usually I just stick to the global settings that will apply to all of the texture sets. In this case, it's only two. But if they have more global settings, it would apply to all of them unless you override them by going to an individual texture set. And for example, you could change the export size or the other parameters like that. But for today, we're just going to stick to global settings. So these are the global settings. They're also nicely labeled, fairly intuitive. Um, the output directory is simply where you're going to save your exported textures. So you just click on this and you can navigate to wherever you want to save your textures. In this case, I have this here where have this little gnome saved. And I'm just actually going to create a new folder. And we're going to start with PBR because that's the easiest one. So I'm going to just make a folder called PBR. And I'm going to open it. I'm going to click Select Folder. You'll see now the little file path represents where I navigated to. Output templates we'll circle back to. We'll skip it for now. File type, that's simply the format of the texture you're going to export. I usually use PNG, but you have a bunch of other formats available. But let's just go with PNG. Your pixel depth you can also change. Now be careful with this. A lot of places, a lot of games don't really support 16-bit pixel depth. So I think in general, unless you specifically know that you can support a 16-bit pixel depth, just leave it at 8 bits. It's fine for almost everything. Um, Size is the size of your texture that you're going to be exporting. And again, you have to be a little bit mindful here. I typically do not recommend 2048. For most game assets, you want to keep it in the 1024 or 512 range. So if you're making something really small, you can do 256. But for this little guy, we're going to keep it at 1024. Could probably get away to 512, but let's just keep it at 1024. Padding. Padding has to do with the area around UV islands. Dilation to transparent just means that it will stretch the texture, in this case 8 pixels out from the UV island. And there's a bunch of different ones. Again, they're pretty self-explanatory. Dilation to infinity will just stretch the texture out till it encounters either the edge of the texture or another UV island, and default background color is black, so it'll stretch to 8 pixels and then leave it black. I usually just do dilation to transparent, um, and you don't want this to be zero, because if you have zero dilation around your UV islands, you sometimes get these little gaps in your model when you apply the textures. So you want it. I think anything less than 6, I wouldn't do it. I usually keep it around 8. The default is about 10 or 15, but you're pretty safe at 8. Just don't make it zero. These other two things, USD asset has to do with exporting whole scenes that aren't really applicable, and exporting the shader, it just has to do again with exporting the shader that you use in Substance Painter. Neither of these things really are applicable for our particular use case, which is creating textures to be applied to a 3D model in Second Life or in a different program. Okay, fairly straightforward. Okay, so now let's circle back to output templates. In this case, we're going to create a PBR texture. And what makes it really easy is that there is a built-in output template. You simply go here, click on this little pull-down menu, and you see a whole bunch of templates. You want to go all the way to the top. Now, don't get distracted if there's other templates that have PBR in their name. That's not the ones you want to use. You want to use this one here, and it's GLTF PBR metal roughness. That's the one that you want to use to create PBR materials. And you'll notice that there's a line here. It's kind of faint, but there's a line here. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just wanted to point it out to you. So this is the one we're using, GLTF PBR metal roughness. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th one down from the very top. And that's pretty much it. All you have to do to create your PBR material, so essentially make sure you tell it where you want to save it, select this output template, click export, done and done. List of exports will just tell you what the program just created. You can click on this button up here, open output directory, and it will open the folder where you saved your textures. Let's go ahead and do that. And you'll see that we have, for the beard, let's make these a little bigger. You have a base color and an emissive, a normal, ORM, which is a combination of ambient occlusion, roughness, and metalness maps. All of these textures are what create a PBR material. You also have a GLB and a GLTF file. Oh, also you have all those textures for the hat. So for each texture set, you'll have this series of textures. The GLB and a GLTF file, think of them as a giant box that contains all of these textures. If I had like 5 different texture sets, they would all be put into these kind of, just think of them as a box. They're all put in that box. And it makes it really easy to apply PBR textures, because you're bringing in a single file and it contains all of the components of the material, and you're not having to apply them one at a time. As you'll see, we have to do it in when we're doing Blinn-Phong. Okay, so we're good to go. I'm going to pop into Second Life to show you. I'm going to go ahead and close this window. Let's pop into Second Life. This is here. Here's a little gnome dude. I have 2 of them. One I'm going to apply a PBR texture to, and the other one I'm going to apply a Blinn-Phong texture. So let's first of all import our texture. And again, this is Second Life specific. If you're in a different situation, there'll be a different kind of workflow for importing your textures, but it's not going to differ too drastically. And okay, so for Second Life, you're going to click the plus arrow, and you're going to click upload, and you're going to click material. For PBR, you're importing a material. It's going to bring up this window. You just need to navigate to where you saved your material, and in my case, it is hiding from me. Okay. One second. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Gnomes. And we have that folder that I created, PBR. Now, you'll notice that all of the component textures are visible in this uploader. They're there. They're just not visible because I said I wanted to upload a material as opposed to uploading a texture. Uh, you can select either one of them. I tend to select the GLTF. They're very similar. They're both container files. Now, I had two texture sets, and once I select the GLTF, it asks me if I want to bulk upload. If I pull this down, you see it has the two texture sets available. So if I only wanted to upload one or the other, I could do that. But I want to upload both, so I'm just going to leave it on bulk upload. I'm going to say OK. It'll tell me how much it costs, and once you agree to the payment, it will go through its upload process. And you'll notice that it uploaded all of the textures that were created, as well as the GLTF. Sorry, the material files. So we have a no material and a beer material. So let's go ahead and apply these materials to the gnome. So I'm just going to right click and click edit. I'm going to bring up my edit window. Move this over a little bit. I'm going to go to the textures tab in my edit window, and there's these two other tabs. One is for the PBR material and one is for the Blinn-Phong material. I'm going to concentrate on the PBR material. Now, I could theoretically go into textures and drag each of the individual textures into the appropriate slot, but again, one of the nice things about PBR materials is you don't have to do that. You can just use the container file. So I want to actually edit linked because I want to apply the correct texture material to the correct part of this little gnome dude. So I'm selecting everything but the beard, and I'm going to drag and drop this right into this first material slot. And you see it populates automatically all of the texture slots when I do that. I'm going to make it opaque. And there we have it. And then for the beard, I'm going to select the beard and drag and drop the beard. Done and done. Simple, easy. And now our little guy has his textures. And this is PBR. Like I said, PBR is really simple. And he's somehow in the ground. Let's pull you out of the ground, little dude. Pull you out of the ground, too. Okay. So, again, PBR is very simple. You're just going to use that pre-made output template, and you're good to go. Okay, so now let's look at exporting a Blinn-Phong texture. As this auto says, let's go pop back into Second Life and let's talk about the components of a Blinn-Phong texture, or material more properly. Okay, so Blinn-Phong, if you go in the Blinn-Phong tab of your edit window here, there's actually 3 texture slots as opposed to 4 here, which is actually one of these. The ORM is actually 3 in 1. Anyway, regardless, the Blinn-Phong there's 3 texture slots for a diffuse texture, a normal texture, and a specular. So what we need to do is create an output template that will produce a diffuse, a normal, and a specular texture that we can put in those slots. So let's go back to Substance Painter, and let's go back to our export window here. Now, again, PBR has a built-in template, export template. There isn't one for Blinn-Phong, so we have to create one. So we're going to go to our middle tab here, output templates, and there's a few areas here that we'll talk about. This first column is labeled presets, and these are just all of the existing output templates. Most of these built in, some of them I have made myself. And any of these can be duplicated by selecting them and clicking on this little double page icon here. Any of them can be deleted by selecting them and clicking the minus arrow, the minus button. Or you can create a blank one by clicking on the plus sign. Now, most of these, remember I told you earlier that there's this line here. Any of the templates above the line are actually not available in this window to modify, but all of the rest of them are. So these are all pre-made. You could modify modify them. I would recommend you make copies of them before you modify them, but you can go ahead and modify them. Okay, so but we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to click the plus arrow here, and you see it here in my preset list, a new one appeared in blue, and it's just named New Export Preset. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to rename it SL Blinn-Phong. You see, there's another one I created here. Don't worry about that. Uh, you could also, double click and rename any of these. Again, I would recommend making copies of the built-in presets before renaming them. But you can go ahead and rename them if you want. Okay, so with this selected, let's look at the rest of this window. Oh, with this, oops, where did it go? Okay, I saw before. Um, this central area is where you actually create the textures that you're going to export. And the way you create them is by clicking on one of these buttons. Here it says Output Maps Create, and you have a variety of options. So let's go ahead and click on them, and you'll see that it jumped. Sorry, for some reason it jumped to the other preset. Okay, so when I click on the grayscale, you see I get this line. If I click on the RGB, I get a new one and a new one and a new one and a new one. Let's look at them. The grayscale one has a slot for me to insert a grayscale texture. The RGB one has a slot for me to insert a color texture, red, green, blue. This one here, the RGB, has a separate channel for each of the color channels, so I could put a separate texture for the red, green, and blue channel. This one here, which is this one, has a slot for a color texture and an alpha texture, or in this case opacity. And then this last one has all of the channels separated, the red, the green, the blue, and the alpha. Now you can actually right click, I don't know why it keeps jumping like that. You can actually click on these and split them. So if I had accidentally created that one, I'm like, oh no, I actually really want that one. You can actually just shortcut it and vice versa. Um, you can go back and forth. It's just a little convenience. I'm going to go ahead and delete these because I actually don't want all of this. What I want for Blinn-Phong is 3 RGB textures, and I'm also going to create an RGB with an alpha for the beard. Okay, so right now these are just empty texture slots. There's no information being translated. If I to export this, I would end up with nothing. So what we need to do is map the textures that are available to us, which are represented in these two columns, these three areas, and we need to map them to specific textures. Now, stop doing that. Jeez, it keeps jumping to. I'm actually gonna. I'm not gonna delete that. Okay, I don't know why it keeps jumping like that. Please bear with me. Okay, so like I said earlier, we need a diffused, a normal, and a specular. So let's go ahead and replace these because right now the names aren't particularly informative. You see this little dollar sign here, and these are little expressions that will automatically insert information about the texture. So dollar sign project will just put the project name, meaning the name of your saved Substance Painter file. And then I'm going to do the dollar sign texture set, which will distinguish between the beard and the rest of the gnome, so don't get confused. And then, will you stop doing that, Substance Painter? And then underscore diffused. Diffuse. There we go. I'm actually just going to copy this part so I don't have to keep doing it. This one I'm going to do, especially if it cooperates. I'm going to do normal. This one I'm going to do specular. And this one's going to be the diffuse with the alpha. So diffused alpha. But you can name them anything you want, as long as they make sense to you, and once you export them, you can easily apply them to your material. Name them anything you want. But this is what I named them. Keep it simple. Again, you're given an option of the stop jumping. That is so weird. I have no idea why it's doing that. Okay. Um, Again, you get to pick the file format and the pixel depth. In this case, PNG. I'm just going to leave this alone. I'm happy with that. Okay, so let's start with the diffused. Now, the diffused. Um, oh, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's look at these three categories of textures that are available to you. Input maps are simply all of the channels that are available to you based on your shader. And for the most part, I don't use these, with one exception. Mesh maps are those maps that you baked in the beginning. And then converted maps are actually a combination of your baked maps and what you have created in your layer stack. So these are the preferable ones. These are ones that contain, all your work. So these are the ones that stop jumping. Jesus. Okay. So these are the ones that you're going to want to use primarily. Okay, so for diffuse, you have a couple options. You can use a 2D view, which essentially is, I'm actually going to close this for a second to show you this. The 2D view is essentially this texture here. It's shaded and has all of the benefit of all of the other maps. It's kind of like the combined um, texture. So let's go back to our uh, output template, and let's go to the bottom and grab this guy. Okay, so that's the 2D view. There's also a diffuse texture here that is almost identical. I find it to be slightly more faded than the 2D view, so I typically use the 2D view. And so in order to map this texture to my export texture, I'm going to click on it, left click on it, drag it, and drop it into the slot. As soon as I do that, I get this other pop-up asking me for the format. In this case, I want a color texture, so I'm going to click on RGB, and that's it. It's done. You'll notice that this little green will remind you that this is what's in that slot. For the normal, really simple. You have the option of a DirectX or OpenGL. For Second Life, it's OpenGL. Drag it. Okay. Sorry about this weird thing that's happening. Um, Drag it and drop it right in there. And in this case, you also want to click on the RGB channels, because it is the normal map actually uses all three of those channels. And for specular, really straightforward. Again, you're going to specular, drag and drop it. Now, specular is a grayscale map, so pick grayscale. You could probably get away with, nah, I think that didn't work. Grayscale. Um, you could probably get away with picking the RGB channel, but it is a grayscale map. That's what you want to pick. For this one, we're going to put the 2D view again here, and RGB, and then for the alpha, we're going to use the opacity. Now, this is the where you're actually going to use this the opacity from here. Mind you, there's an opacity over here. Unless you have unless you had holes in your model that you baked into your opacity map in the beginning, you don't want to use this. You want to actually use the opacity from here, and it is listed alphabetically. You want to grab it. Okay, it jumped again. So strange. Okay, here we go. We're going to use the opacity from here. I'm going to drag it and drop it. Now, here's a slightly counterintuitive bit. It's an alpha channel, so you would think you would pick the alpha channel when you drag it in and this pops up. You actually have to pick the grayscale channel, because although the alpha is actually a transparency. The opacity map is actually a grayscale map. So you want to pick grayscale. So there you have it. Um, it keeps switching back and forth. So um, I hope that it's not okay, making things confusing. But I'm gonna go ahead and linger here. You there's the color coordination. Oh, these are between the maps, and here this is the same as this because I used the same texture twice, and the alpha did not take. Try that again. Grayscale. No, it's there. It's just really light. Okay. I'm just gonna do it one more time just in case. Grayscale. Okay, I'm gonna hope that worked. Okay, so again, I'm gonna let you get a chance to get a screenshot of this, and the color coordination hopefully will help you see what went where. Wish it were a little more diverse. So strange. Okay, so we've set up our Blinn-Phong texture. We have to go back to our settings, and we need to pick that template, which is this one right here. We can go to list of exports to get a preview of what we're going to get. And certainly if you get a diffused alpha, it's named gnome 1 beard, and a regular diffused gnome 1 beard, a normal, a specular, and then we get a gnome 1, a gnome 1 with all of the textures. But at least you were able to distinguish for the textures for the beard and the textures for um, the rest of the gnome through the name. Okay, so let's go back to settings. We have this correct. We're going to go ahead and export. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I skipped a step. I don't want to export in the same folder that I exported PBR, just because I just don't want to have to weed through all of those other textures. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it BP for Blinn-Phong, and select it. Double check that I have the correct. Sometimes when you change that, it will jump to a different output template. And I'm okay with everything else. And oh, file size, file type, yeah, based on output template, in which case they're all PNGs, PNGs. That only makes sense if you live in California. That slip of the tongue. Um, and so it's based on the template, which is fine because I want a PNG. But I'm just gonna put PNG 8-bit. That's all good. And I'm gonna go ahead and export. And I'm gonna open output directory, and you see that we have, let's make this bigger, we have a diffuse alpha, a diffuse that doesn't have the alpha channel, a normal, and a specular for both the beard and the gnome, rest of the gnome. Okay, so let's pop back into Second Life and bring this in. Oh, actually, skipping a step here and go to here. And I'm actually going to delete these textures. Hold on, let me make this simpler. I'm going to go ahead and delete these textures that we use for the PBR just to make things cleaner. And I'm going to upload okay, so in this case we're uploading textures. We're not going to be able to take advantage of the GLTF container file. So I'm going to go to my plus sign, upload, and in this case I'm going to say bulk. That allows you to upload multiple textures, as opposed to image that allows you to upload only a single texture. So I'm going to go to bulk, and I'm going to go to my BP where I store my textures for Blinn-Phong, and I'm just going to select them all and upload them. It's going to tell me the cost, and I'm going to bring them all in. Oops. So there's 6 textures total, 3 for each part of the gnome. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit, bring up my edit window. I'm going to click edit linked parts because I want to, um, the body's separate mesh than the beard. And I'm going to drag and drop each of these materials to the correct slot. So for the diffuse goes into diffused, the normal goes into normal, and the specular goes into specular. Just dragging and dropping them. And then for the beard, I'm going to drag and drop the diffuse alpha because the beard I want transparency. And then for the normal, I'm going to drag normal, and for the specular, I'm going to drag specular. And then for the, oops, I- that was, okay, so I just need to, for the alpha to muse to function properly, under alpha mode, right now it says none, I need to pick blended. And now we have our little beard. And sometimes in a blender will put a color um, on your mesh, but here's the little guy in. So here he is, Blinn-Phong, and here he is, PBR. Not sure why his beard is this dark. I probably have to fix that, but you get the idea. So that's it. That's how you export. I do want to make a. I do want to point out before we call it a day that the materials that you create in Blender, in this case here, uh, I I made this guy where all of the components had the same material, which was number one, and then the beard had its own material. And the materials you create in Blender translate into texture sets in Substance Painter. So if you have multiple, for example, if you had a material for the hat and one for the body for the sweater and one for the hands and one for the feet and one for the nose, each one of those materials that you create in Blender would translate into a different texture set. And so you'd have a different layer stack, and it also mean each of those texture sets would export as their own little set of textures, which you would, and if you had a shared UV like I have, everything's one UV for the body, and then the beard has one UV. If I had parceled them up into a bunch of different materials like the hat, the body, the hands, feet, uh, I would, if I wanted to consolidate them into a single set of textures for Blinn-Phong or a single material for PBR, I would have to consolidate all those textures either by bringing them to Photoshop and tallying them together. And there's also some, at least a couple third-party little programs that will do it for you automatically. So what I do to avoid that is I will, for each UV map that I intend to use for my model, I give it the same material in Blender, even if ultimately when I export it to, in this case, Second Life, I will have different materials because I want different faces. For the purposes of Substance Painter, I will give it all the same, like I did here. I give it all the same material so that it will all be the same texture set. And then I use folders, and in this case I use geometry masks, but you can also use black and white masks and uh, ID ID masks. In other words, I create folders and I mask them. In this case, I use geometry masks, but there's a couple of other ways you can mask your folders. So that in this case, the CC stands for candy cane. Everything I put in this folder will only apply itself to this part of the mesh. But since it has the same material, it will all be in a single texture set. That's just my approach. There's other ways of doing this, but since I don't want to, on the tail end, have to deal with either consolidating my textures or having multiple sets of textures to apply to one little model, I like to do it this way. Okay, we'll get into, as we get into teaching a full course in Substance Painter, we will get in more in depth on different ways to approach setting up your texture sets and creating masks and so on and so forth. But for the purposes of this video, we are done. And please come and check us out.